Justine Smith here today with a special guest for the Fantasia International Film Festival. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us why you're here?
Okay, my name is Paulo Leite. I am a starting film producer from Portugal and Brazil. I have a company called Bad Behavior, and we develop and produce horror films.
Can you tell us a bit more about what Bad Behavior is?
Yeah, we are a company. I founded with a partner of mine. I handle production. He handles marketing, and we have a couple of other friends who work with us in developing projects, screenwriting, starting stories and premises, and we write everything. We shoot our trailers. We make posters. We make artwork. Everything that we need to do to stand out.
I've noticed that it's only recently you started as just Portugal, and it's only recently you've expanded to also being Brazilian. What motivated that change?
Well, Portugal right now is in a very bad situation financially. The country is under a foreign intervention because it was nearly bankrupt 2 years ago. So all the money for investment in private equity regarding audiovisual suddenly dried up. So we had to make a quick decision. Either we would stop what we were doing, which was not an option, or we should start expanding and look for other answers. So Brazil, because I'm Brazilian, we had this natural inclination to go to Brazil because there are in Brazil good mechanisms for financing films.
Yeah, no, they have a much stronger, I don't want to say community, but kind of organizational structure to kind of support both local films and international. The Rio Film Commission is just one of them, which I think has been extremely effective. Then you also, I'm actually really interested in the fact that I watched your TED Talk. Mm-hmm. That was done in 2010.
Yes.
So was that around the time that the crisis really happened?
Exactly.
And you proposed a quote unquote a sustainable strategy for Portuguese cinema.
Yes. Here's the thing. We should have whenever you're trying to develop film. Film is a very expensive activity. Is a very expensive industry. You have to have a strategy that will, at the same time, allow people to make the movies they want, and at the same time, keep the feet on the ground. Keep your feet on the ground in order for you to make the films, have some return, have some kind of strategy and structure that will minimize risk, so you can bring other people on board, like co-producers, private investment. So you can really make the films and get the investment that you need to fund the projects. Film is a very expensive thing, so it's absurd. I feel it's absurd it's an absurd idea to just make the film and that's it, because that's not viable.
So it's kind of a departure, but I think in the same vein you have. You recently expanded to Brazil, but it started really as a Portuguese company.
Yeah.
There isn't really a legacy or a strong legacy of horror cinema in Portugal. I mean, there's a few. One of them played at Fantasia short a few years ago. How do you build on the fact that there isn't really a horror film industry in Portugal?
There isn't a horror film industry in Portugal. Mainly, the films in Portugal, they are subsidized by the state. Which is good. It has good things and bad things with the system. The good things is that once you get financed, you can get significant amount of money. The bad thing is that the system is decided by people who are not related to the industry, and they do have some prejudices against horror or against genre film. So if you have a genre film, it would be very hard to get it financed in Portugal. That's the problem that lots of people who would love to make horror films encounter in their professional lives. There are lots of people who are trying to make horror films in Portugal, but they can't because they cannot find public funding for their projects. At the same time, they lack the expertise, the experience to go around this problem and search for money where there could be money. For example, co-productions, for example, going to the market, going to film festivals, talking to the right people, meeting the right people. Meaning that the result of this is that there are short films in Brazil, in Portugal, that are in the horror genre. However, they lack the professional structure and the professional knowledge, know-how that would be expected of those films.
Okay. On the other hand, you kind of have Brazil, which actually has a legacy of genre cinema, and even horror. You have Coffin Joe.
Oh yeah.
Do you hope to be kind of continuing more in that legacy, or do you want to really invent? I don't know, invent is the right word, but in my experience, different regions from the world, when they're making horror, be it Japan or Canada or France, they all come from a different approach.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that you're going to be drawing a lot on the Brazilian kind of style or environment?
It's a good question. At Bad Behavior, what we try to do is, when we sit to start to consider a project that we're going to develop, we have two ideas mainly. First is we try to do something that we haven't seen before. There is this premise, this idea, this story, let's say, that we haven't seen yet, which is hard, which is something that's pretty hard to come by. On the other hand, we can also start by something that, yes, we have seen this, but we haven't seen it told this way. Or we can bring something new to it. We can bring something new, fresher to it. So we have both ways of dealing with projects. Yes, Brazil has a kind of heritage, a legacy in horror projects. Also, Brazil is a very big country, so you have different regions with different tastes. So you have, for example, in the Northeast, a different horror from what you have in the Southeast, for example. Meaning that what we're trying to do at Bad Behavior is building bridges between Latin America and Europe, and trying to get films that have a flavor that is unique because it draws the best from both continents. So we have an European style with an urban atmosphere from Brazil, and we're trying to get something that will stand out because we believe that you should build bridges between people and between countries. That's how many of the best films came to become the best films, because they were exactly this bridges between people and other people. Different styles, different genres, and we believe in that.
I think that's very admirable, and I'm actually surprised that, I've read a few of the reports that the government has done recommendations on the Portuguese film industry, encouraging that to kind of reach out to Brazil and some of the Portuguese colonies. I just don't know if they have I don't know if it's the know-how or they don't have the people involved who have been actually trying to do that in the way that you have.
I suppose they do. I don't know everybody.
Yeah, no, of course not.
But I think they do. The problem is that these international connections, they are the best way for you to develop a project. There is a basic rule in filmmaking, which is you do not co-produce unless you have to.
Yeah.
Obviously, a film project is a very personal thing, obviously. And the more people you get into, the harder it gets to go by.
Yeah, of course.
So co-productions, many times, you make the film, but there's a lot of blood on the walls in a co-production. So you only co-produce if you have to. That's all. Every advice I ever was given in my life pointed in that direction, and experience confirms it. However, film is such a demanding environment, and you have so many steps and so many phases, and you have so many people that you have to reach in order to have your film across to the audience.
Yes.
That inevitably, somehow, you will end up sharing a work with someone, and that will develop into a co-production. There are many types of co-production, but I think that if you need to co-produce, okay, go for it.
Actually, I'm kind of going to return for just a second to your sustainable strategy, because I think it kind of plays into what you're talking about risk, because that's basically what these co-productions are.
Yeah. Sharing risk.
And as well as I think the approach that you're taking to horror, at least, because it is easy to do horror films very cheaply, very quickly, without much care for the quality of the end product. Some might argue that even making quote unquote, I don't want to make assumptions, a high quality horror film is a risk in and of itself, because you might be investing more money. What exactly are you referring to when you say a high risk project?
Well, film is always a high risk project.
Yeah.
Because first, you have to consider that it takes a long time to develop a project. You mean the screenwriting, the packaging, finding the actors, finding the talent, finding the director. It takes time itself. Then you have the making of the film itself. That takes also at least a year to make it. So you will have this structure where the money is always going in and doesn't coming out, and it's not coming out. And then you will still have to look forward to a time where, okay, the film is ready, we have to open, we have to sell it, we have to exhibit, distribute it. And you will have to distribute it in many countries, in many territories, because again, if you're going to recoup, if you're hoping to recoup the money, it will never come from one market.
Yeah.
That's how this business is structured. That's how it works. So eventually, that's why I usually say that there are so many steps in the way. You need so many. You need a sales agent. You need distributors in many countries. So you have to have time. That takes time. That takes energy. That takes some money. Even if you have someone to put the money in the film, you will need money to promote it. It takes time in the market, in the festival circuit. So it's risky, because you are always putting money, and you're not necessarily seeing the money coming back to you.
Yeah.
So it's scary if someone who's not from the industry looks at it, because it looks like a bottomless pit. So, but then again, you take a look at the world financial crisis that we've been living in the last 5 years.
Yeah, it's about 5 years now.
And you can imagine that investments that were very secure suddenly proved that they were not secure at all. I mean, you look at Lehman Brothers, you look at Enron, you look at all these companies that have tremendous problems and go under. You have governments that go under. And I think that, yes, film is risky. There is a risk in film, and one of the ways of minimizing the risk is going for soft money, which means public money that you don't have to give back, either in subsidies, either through subsidies or through tax sheltering, tax rebates. There are many mechanisms that helps soften the risk. And they're good, because you can show an investor, okay, I have already 40% of the money, and you only need to put 60 or less, because I also have pre-sales. Yeah. So there are many ways for you to assemble the money that you need for a film, and this is the type of knowledge that practice gives you. But you have to look for it. You have to go get this practice, because it's not something that you learn in film school.
No, not my experience.
You have to really go to the market and talk to the people and show your project. And in my point of view, but this is me, others may disagree, you have to let go the idea that your project is something that only you can know. You can minimize risk putting in your assemblage different sources of income, of money, not income, but different sources of financing, even soft money or private equity or pre-sales. So there are several ways of getting the money that you need to make the film. And hopefully you will find a structure that will give you the best chance of getting the film sold successfully and recouping some of the money that you put. So that's what we're all trying to do. There is a magic point somewhere that it's never the same for every film, naturally. but it's something that each producer has to find, and that's the tricky part. But however, it's interesting because it demands from the producer and the writer and the director willingness to reach for distributors and sales agents and let them know what the project is and get their feedback and incorporate the feedback back into the project, because you are always aiming to make a project better, stronger, more robust, so it will first stand out in the market and present itself as a best option when the audience or the buyer considers similar films. Because it's the type of illusion that we are all under, that our film is unique. It's never unique enough. We have to make it unique, and that's how you make a project unique. When you really learn get the feedback from the market and evaluate what other projects are available, what you can bring into the project that it makes it better, that makes it more interesting. Never forgetting that you have an audience in the end that will have to buy your film. So your film will have to be promoted. So you always have to have 1,000 eyes in all these things, and that requires a lot of willingness to share the project.
What I find interesting is that I've gone through your blog for Bad Behavior.
Yep.
It's in Portuguese, but
yep.
Google Translate is not that bad these
Okay.
days. And you have a lot of posts related to things like the marketing and the construction of a project.
Uh-huh.
I really enjoy things like the posters. It's like every element. It's not just the film itself anymore. You can't rely on your movie, as good or not good as it may be, to sell itself. It's about the whole package.
Exactly. You have to understand that the filmmaker is never alone. It would be amazing if I could make the film, sell it, promote it, and do everything according to what I think is the best. But if you think of the enormous amount of work that it takes to make a film, you cannot do everything. That's the sad truth. So a producer, a director, a screenwriter, we have these different jobs because you cannot do everything yourself. Some people can, but they are the exception. They're not the rule. The rule is that you really have to bring as many of these people on board, and they should be excellent in what they do, so you have a team. That's what it's all about. So films do not exist in the void, unfortunately. Films exist in a market with other films, and they need to be promoted, they need to be communicated, they need to be shown to buyers and audiences and whoever, or stakeholders, let's call them that way, in order for the film to meet its end, which is its audience, whatever it may be, no matter how many they are. So you have to have great posters, yes, you have to have great teasers, yes, you have to have trailers, because let's face it, there is an awful amount of movies out there fighting for the same screens. I mean, you have a growing number of films, but you have the same number of screens. So it would be great if 15 years ago we produced X number of films. Today we produce 4 times the number of films. It would be great if we had screens for all these films, but we don't. So the films have to fight for themselves. So you will hardly succeed with just the film. You have to think about the whole strategy around the film that will prepare the film, prepare the way for the film, prepare the landing of the film. So unfortunately, films are beautiful works of the highest artistic level, but still we have to sell them like toothpaste. That's a fascinating contradiction, because we are making art, we are making beautiful works in every genre. I'm not saying that drama, comedy is better. No. In every genre, we're making beautiful works of art, but still, they have to be sold.
Do you think that, because in the past 10 years, even the modes of marketing have changed so drastically with things like the Blair Witch Project, Cloverfield, you have these incredibly creative viral marketing campaigns. Do you think that we've reached a point where there is, I don't want to say, there is an oversaturation of the market? Does the marketing strategy have to be to the same level of creativity as the films themselves in order to succeed?
Well, there is something that I learned in marketing is that you cannot, there are always exceptions obviously to everything, but mainly you cannot sell a bad product. If the product is no good, you can fool the audience once, but the bad word of mouth will be so loud that obviously the project will be dead sometime. There is this, I believe it's a misconception that people say that bad films sell. I don't think bad films sell. I think that people say this because they don't like the films that are selling. Obviously, there are many films that sell well that I don't like, but that's because I'm not their audience. Plain and simple. But for that audience, they may be great, but not for me. However, so you have to have a good product that speaks to the audience that you want to reach. So you have to learn that audience. You have to know who they are, what they like, what they don't like. You have to understand what they have seen in terms of movies, so you will give them something that they haven't seen before. So you're always trying to reach an audience, surprising them, giving something that they want, and even better, giving something that they wasn't expecting. It's not about give the audience what they want. It's about giving them more than they are paying for. And that's, to me, it's a big challenge. And in terms of marketing, so if you have this type of product, if you have that product if you have this film that reaches the audience, speaks to them, gives them the whole shebang, I feel it makes it easier to market. It makes it easier to build a communication strategy to reach them. But still, you have many challenges ahead of you because still there are other films that are also quality products. So it's a mix of having the right film at the right time, also having the right creative team in marketing. So when you have these things to get put together, your chances of success are increased. But yes, to go back to your question, yes, in the last 15 years, since Blair Witch, or slightly before Blair Witch, there has been many of these phenomenons that were triggered by the internet. So the internet you cannot ignore it. So the internet has this power today that we didn't have. I remember when I was a kid, I was dependent on film magazines. If I wanted to know a project that would be available, all I could do was buy a magazine, and then I would know the projects that would open in the next month. It was already digested news through the press. Today you have the bloggers. Today you have your peers, and you tend to listen to your peers instead of the press. That's why the critics are not the same today, are not in the same position today that they were 20 years ago. And when I was a kid, I only had the critics when I wanted to talk, when I wanted to get some information about the films. Today you don't have that. Today the promotion of a film starts. You can never say that it's too early. Sometimes you know about a film a year before it's shot. Sometimes you start seeing teasers before they have the money to make the film yet. So today you have to be very imaginative on how you communicate what you want to communicate. So yes, the landscape has changed a lot. I would say that in terms of marketing, it has nothing to do with what it was 20 years ago, but still you have to have a great film and you have to have a great creative team behind the communication.
On a similar note, what is your opinion of crowdfunding websites? We have like Indiegogo in Canada, there's Kickstarter, which is gaining popularity. How do you see that as being it's effectively part of the industry now?
Okay, I see it two ways. For example, recently there was that case of Veronica Mars
Yeah.
and Zach Braff.
And now Spike Lee.
And it's now Spike Lee.
Yeah.
These are people who are already known to a vast amount of people and who already have their audience and their fans. So they are banking on those fans that they have. Crowdfunding is about how many fans you can create. If you already have the fans, great, use them. However, if you don't have anything, if you're really starting something from zero, if you're really starting from scrap, it will take a lot of effort, a lot of work for you to build a successful campaign, either in Kickstarter or in Indiegogo or in many other multiple crowdfunding platforms there are. I heard recently that there were even crowdfunding platforms for breast implants.
I never heard of that.
Yeah,
That's
it's
amazing.
true. That's
I
amazing.
believe it.
It's true. So if you don't benefit from the recognition level of Spike Lee or Zach Braff or Veronica Mars, you have a long journey to go before you reach a successful campaign. However, so there are two things that are different. So either you are someone who is unknown with a project that is new, or you are someone who already has a following, some kind of following. For those who already have some following, like Spike Lee or Zach Braff, I would say that a crowdfunding campaign is great to energize your crowd. So it would be a great marketing tool for you to say, okay, we're going to make this, come give us money.
Yeah, and they benefit as well. You get
Exactly.
rewards.
Because you have the opportunity to early on to engage people and bring them into your project. And what better way to do that than getting their money? However, if you don't enjoy that level of recognition, you can also generate it if you have an amazing campaign, which is very tough to do.
Yeah.
But it will be a lot of work. And then, yes, you can use crowdfunding as a great tool for financing, or, like the others do, you can use it as an incredible platform for energizing, marketing, etc. Because I doubt that someone like Spike Lee or Zach Braff could not get money to make their films.
Although Spike Lee's, they're thinking he's not going to, he's using Kickstarter.
Okay.
And you have a limited amount of time, and if you don't reach that, you don't get any.
It's 60 days in Kickstarter.
He's actually, they're supposing that he's not going to reach his goal.
Well, yeah, that's it.
But it's his marketing. That's the problem.
Yes, it has to do. It has to do with. Obviously, not everybody who is Spike Lee's audience is in Kickstarter. For example, let me give you a weird example. Ingmar Bergman has died, unfortunately. But let's say that Ingmar Bergman would wanted to make a film on Kickstarter. I don't know if his audience would be on Kickstarter. So it would be much easier for Veronica Mars with Kickstarter than Ingmar Bergman. So the audience is not the same. It doesn't work. I doubt that it works for every type of film, for every author, for everybody. I'm not sure if either Spike Lee is doing the best campaign he could.
For him, he never made a pitch as to what his film was going to be.
There you have it. That's probably one of the reasons why he's having a problem. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know what strategy is. I'm speculating, but you for example, you look at there is this Finnish film which is Iron Sky.
Yeah.
Which was very successful, as I heard. They just finished a campaign to raise $150,000, and they did it, and they raised even more than that. And it's a comedy, sci-fi, horror that speaks to young audiences. I think that's the best audience you can get on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. In their case, I think it was Indiegogo. But Spike Lee, he's not doing the same type of campaign, and these campaigns are very time consuming.
Yeah.
They demand a lot of work, as I was saying. You have to make many videos, you have to think for some time and create your rewards and calculate them very carefully and maybe add some along the way based on the feedback you get from your backers. So it's, if you have, in Kickstarter, they used to have, I think, 90 days of campaign. Then they shrink it to 60 days because I think they realized that the longer the campaign, the harder, the least successful they were. Yeah. I think they made this study. That's why they brought it down from 90 days to 60. But it's 60 days that you will not do anything except care for that campaign.
You're reaching out to people.
Exactly. So those campaigns are full-time jobs. But you can look at them in both ways, as a marketing thing or as a strictly financing thing. It depends on who you are and what you can bring into it.
So since we're in Montreal and we're here for the Fantasia International Film Festival, what exactly has brought Bad Behavior to this festival?
Well, we are a Portuguese Brazilian company, meaning that, as I said, we're building a bridge between Latin America and Europe. Canada has a co-production agreement with Brazil. Sorry to say, not with Portugal. However, Canada has a film industry that is unique because over the years, Canada had a strategy for its film industry that it's consistent, makes sense, considering where Canada sits. I mean, alongside, just bordering the biggest film industry in one of the most active film industries in the world, America. Then also 2 languages, English and French, which makes Canada a close alternative or ally to both the French-speaking cinema and the English-speaking cinema. So I think that if Bad Behavior can work also as another bridge between that world and Latin America and Southern Europe, that would be awesome. I think I'm a firm believer that you should always in your films bring new blood, new breath into your ideas, because good ideas can come from anywhere. You never know where good ideas can come from. So I really believe that coming to Fantasia is great because sales agents are here, distributors are here, and they all can contribute to your project, saying, okay, I think this is interesting, I don't think this is interesting. I know someone who can buy this. I know someone who would love to see this. And that's networking. That's how you make films, networking.
So my next question is, maybe it's just a reiteration, but what is your impression of the way that the Frontiers project, which is basically the industry rendezvous at Fantasia, works? Is it living up to the expectations? Are you making good connections?
Yeah, I'm loving it. I'm loving the experience because what Frontier and the industry rendezvous has done is to create this amazing atmosphere of intimacy where you have people who are there for the same reason, who want to meet each other, who need to meet each other, and they're all together in these rooms where they can talk freely, discuss their projects, exchange impressions. And that's what you really need to do, because you have producers, you have distributors, you have sales agents, you have directors, you have all the basic mechanisms of how to make a film, what it takes to make a film, and you bring them into the same place and you just let happen. Obviously, in many cases it won't happen. In other cases it will happen. But if it only happens once, that's success enough. So I think this is fantastic. This idea of having people together in the same place is not something that is new. Other festivals try to have the same atmosphere, and they all work. And given the fact that Fantasia is a genre-specific festival, even better, because you know where the right people are and what they're looking for.
On a more personal note, I know that horror films and genre films are lucrative almost in a different way than art house and everything, so that is an aspect as to why I imagine you've created Bad Behavior. But on a more personal note, what is it about horror cinema or genre cinema that attracts or touches you as an individual?
I think horror films have this. Horror films are subversive. They shock. They expose things. They never give you what you want to see. They always give you something else. They're aiming for that. They're always trying to get a reaction from you, getting a response from you, a physical response from you. Even a scream, even we're always trying to touch you in ways that you are not expecting to be touched. And it's great because the audience wants that. So we are people, we human beings, we are very individualistic, and our society is very individualistic. We don't like to touch, we keep our distances. But in a horror, when we're facing a horror film, the horror film breaks the barrier and actually touches you and makes you do things. And that's what I like about horror films. This subversive element of horror films is something that fascinates me. The idea that you can say whatever you want, you can expose different sides of people, of human beings that usually you don't see. And actually, it's funny because someone said to me once, Paulo, why do you want to make horror films? Isn't life horrible already as it is? I'm sure everybody who makes horror films, who wants to make horror films, has been asked this question once. Why are you trying to make horror films? Life is horrible as it is. And I was for a long time I was thinking, I was puzzled by this question. Why make horror films? And then I realized that why would you want to put disease in your body when the world is also full of diseases, isn't it? There are so many viruses walking around, and why would you purposely infect yourself with the virus? Yeah, you wouldn't, but again, that's the whole idea behind vaccines, isn't it?
Yeah.
So in my point of view, it's a weakened evil that makes you stronger. I think horror films, they appeal to something that is very basic in us. Beyond the subversive thing that fascinates me, there's also this kind of survival, this primal instinct that we have of not dying, not getting into trouble, saving ourselves when things get too rough. And the horror films are something like that. They're always reminding you that the world isn't nice. They're always reminding you that horrible things happen to great people. And that's exactly the same thing with the vaccine. I mean, you put it into your body, and your body will give you a response and help you. That's what I feel.
I was wondering if you would want to share with the CUTV audiences any kind of projects that you have in the works.
Okay, we have, let me think. We have a story about a boy, a 15-year-old boy, who is very smart. His name is Daniel. He's as smart and as intelligent and as mature as an adult. And he lives in Rio. He's a wonderful kid. And there is this problem, which is the banks are collapsing. And the economy is tanking. I think the economy, that's my personal belief, that the economy is going to go worse than it is, unfortunately. I'm not optimistic about Europe economic state. And I think things are going to go worse than they are today. And when it happens, it's going to send massive shocks along the world. And Latin America is going to be hit hard. It's going to be hit hard, and the banks are going to collapse. And Daniel's family is going to be in a dire situation. And one day his father is going to come home and say, okay, we have to start boarding everything. We're going to sit around the house, around the apartment for a year, because in a week things are going to go downhill, and we're going to have to survive somehow and stick together. And plus, the dead are coming back to life. The government is blaming the financial collapse on those dead people. That somehow it's never the politicians' fault, is it? They always blame their stupidity and corruption in someone else, and they're the dead there, so let's blame them. And along the way, Daniel is going to fight to keep his family together, but being a kid, it's going to be tough for him because nobody listens to children. And we should listen to children, because sometimes children have more maturity than adults. Sometimes children know more about life than adults do. And this kid is going to have it rough. But it's going to be a tremendous story. And he's going to grow up the hard way.
It sounds like a very interesting, and
so it's a story. It's a story about this boy fighting to show the world that he knows what he's doing and he has the solution, but the world's going to eat him.
Well, I'm not sure. Do you have anything else you'd like to share with Montreal or the Fantasia audience?
Well, I would like to say this: watch movies and make movies. If you want to, if there are Whoopi Goldberg. Once there was she hosted the Oscars once many years ago, and she said she finished the ceremony saying to that kid watching and dreaming that one day he or she would be making movies, she said, "You bet." So I'd like to say the same. I mean, if someone will be watching this dreaming of one day being in the movies, making movies, I'd say, yeah, you can be in the movies, you can make movies, you can start making movies, you have to fight for it. And it can happen. Make it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
We really look forward to seeing your projects in the future.
Thank you.
And to see you back in Montreal next year.
I hope
and
so.
all the years to come.
I hope so.
And really the best of luck to you.
Thank you.